God's chosen ones. They tried to remove you, but God's favor won't fail. ElioraPath. Why are you still awake at 3 a.m., staring at this screen? Why does your heart pound when you're completely alone? Why do you feel like you're carrying a weight that has no name or burden, that others can't see but heaven refuses to let you forget? Stop. Listen to me carefully. You didn't find this message. This message found you. Right now, whether you're lying in that bed you've cried in, sitting with cold coffee wondering if God remembers your name, or walking through another day feeling invisible to everyone, except the one who counts something sacred is happening. The spiritual realm just pressed pause on your ordinary Tuesday evening because heaven has an urgent delivery. You're not scrolling, you're being summoned. In the courts of glory, your name was just whispered with fire on God's tongue, not because you're perfect, but because you're chosen. Not because you have it all together, but because you've been set apart for something the enemy has been desperately trying to stop. Here's what they don't want you to know. You've been sealed, marked, chosen before your first breath. And every attack, every betrayal, every door that slammed in your face wasn't rejection, it was redirection. They tried to remove you from the equation, but God's favor doesn't fail. Most people live their entire lives without realizing they carry heaven's fingerprint. But tonight, your final assignment is being activated. Can you feel it? That stirring in your chest that your mind can't explain. That's not anxiety. That's not restlessness. That's recognition. Your spirit remembers something. Your flesh forgot you were born for such a time as this. If something deep inside you is awakening right now, if you feel like this message was written in eternity with your pain in mind, I need you to do something. Type in the comments, I feel it, I'm ready. Let heaven and earth witness your response. Your agreement activates acceleration. Before we go deeper, I want to thank every single one of you who has supported this message through super thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating, you're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here. Your support, your time, your attention, it all matters. And if this message resonates with your soul, go ahead and let that seed of faith lead you. Tonight, the veil is thin. The silence you've been walking through is about to break. Because what they tried to destroy, God is about to display. What they attempted to bury, heaven is about to resurrect with interest. You've been marked by divine favor, and nothing, no person, no circumstance, no force of hell can remove what God has sealed. Are you ready to discover why you've felt different your entire life? Why you've carried weight others couldn't understand? Why your trials were so specific, so targeted, so relentless? Stay with me. Your breakthrough has a name, and tonight you're going to hear it. Do you remember the moment you first felt forgotten by this world? When your children moved away and the phone calls grew shorter? When they handed you that retirement watch and suddenly you became invisible in hallways you once commanded? When you buried your spouse and realized the world kept spinning while your heart stood perfectly still? Let me tell you something that will shatter every lie you've believed about your worth, your purpose, your significance in these golden years. You think you're past your prime. You think your best days are behind you. You think God is done with you because society has written you off. You couldn't be more wrong. Listen closely. Before you took your first breath in that delivery room decades ago, before your mother held you, before you had a social security number or a name on a birth certificate, your identity was already written in eternity's book. Jeremiah 1-5 declares this truth with thunder. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. Do you understand what this means? Before your first tear fell, before you were ever called mother, father, spouse, widow, veteran, you were called chosen. Your soul carries the fingerprint of God Himself. But here's what the enemy doesn't want you to know. Every rejection, Every loss, every season where you felt forgotten wasn't evidence that you were insignificant. It was evidence that you were so significant that hell had to try to remove you from the equation. They tried to sideline you. They tried to convince you that your time was over. They tried to make you believe that wisdom comes with expiration dates and that anointing has age limits. But God's favor doesn't fail. You've raised children who now change the world. You've buried friends who are now cheering you on from heaven's grandstands. You've lost jobs that were just stepping stones to your real assignment. You've been forgotten by a world that never understood your true value anyway. But heaven never took its eyes off you. In fact, let me tell you something that will rock your understanding. Ephesians 1-4 says you were chosen before the creation of the world. That means when God spoke light into darkness, when he separated the waters, when he breathed life into Adam, you were already on his mind. Your name was already written on his heart. Your assignment was already sealed in eternity. Do you think it's coincidence that you're still here? That you survived the wars your generation fought? That you weathered the storms that broke others? That you're still breathing when so many of your peers have gone home? This isn't luck. This isn't good genes. This is divine preservation. You were marked before time because God knew this moment would come. This moment when a generation would need your wisdom, when families would need your prayers, when a world losing its way would need the stability that only comes from those who have walked through the valley of the shadow of death and emerged with unshakable faith. Your wrinkles aren't signs of decay, they're evidence of divine refining. Your gray hair isn't a symbol of being past your primates, a crown of glory that Proverbs 16:31 says is attained by a righteous life. Your slower steps aren't weakness, they're the measured pace of someone who knows where they're going because they've learned where not to go. But I need you to understand something urgent. The enemy has been working overtime to convince your generation that your time is over. He's whispered lies about retirement, meaning retreat, about aging, meaning irrelevance, about your best years being behind you. Why? Because he knows what's coming. He knows that when the chosen ones of your generation fully awaken to their identity, when they stop believing the world's definition of their worth and start walking in heaven's declaration of their purpose, the spiritual landscape will shift. You are not yesterday's news. You are tomorrow's hope. The battles you fought against depression in the 1970s, against addiction in the 1980s, against divorce when it seemed like every marriage was falling apart, against doubt when the world told you God was dead, those weren't random struggles, those were training exercises. You were being prepared for a final assignment that only someone with your spiritual mileage could handle. And here's the truth that will either awaken you or offend you. The people trying to remove you, silence you, ignore you, write you off, they're not just fighting against flesh and blood. They're fighting against the purposes of God himself. When they dismiss your wisdom as outdated, when they ignore your warnings as irrelevant, when they treat you like you're taking up space instead of holding down the fort, they're actually revealing their terror of what you represent. You represent continuity. You represent tested faith. You represent the kind of spiritual authority that only comes from decades of walking with God through every season of life. Your marking wasn't just about your past. It was about this moment, right now. When the world needs voices that have been tempered by time, refined by trials, and validated by victory after victory. But here's what I need you to do. I need you to stop letting other people's ignorance convince you that your assignment is over. Comment below, I was marked. Say it aloud right now. Write it in your journal tonight. Declare it so your soul hears it too. Because until you agree with heaven's assessment of your worth, you'll keep living beneath your inheritance. You weren't marked to fade away. You were marked to finish strong. And your strongest days, they're not behind you. They're right now. The question isn't whether you were chosen. The question is, What are you going to do with that choosing now that you know it's real? You've carried it your entire life, haven't you? That invisible weight pressing down on your shoulders. While your friends seemed to glide through their 20s, 30s, 40s, you were wrestling with questions that had no easy answers. While others celebrated their victories, you were learning lessons in hospital waiting rooms, bankruptcy courts, and empty houses after the funeral. And somewhere deep inside, a voice whispered the cruelest lie. You're cursed. But what if I told you that voice was dead wrong? What if the very thing that made your life feel impossibly heavy was actually the evidence of something impossibly holy? Listen to me, dear one. The reason you were misunderstood is the reason you were chosen. Think about David. This Mantha, future king of Israel, spent his teenage years alone in fields, tending sheep while his brothers got the spotlight. When the prophet Samuel came looking for the next king, David wasn't even invited to the family meeting. His own father forgot about him. But God didn't. In Psalm 13, David cries out, "How long, Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me?" David felt exactly what you felt. Abandoned. Overlooked. Too heavy for this world. Yet this same David would write, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." Why? Because he learned something in those lonely fields that palace-raised princes never could. How to depend entirely on God's voice when human voices went silent. Your isolation wasn't rejection, it was consecration. Consider Joseph. Sold into slavery by his own brothers at 17 years old, falsely accused, thrown into prison, forgotten by everyone who promised to remember him. For 13 years, Joseph's life felt like one cosmic mistake after another. But listen to what Joseph said to those same brothers who betrayed him. "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives." Many lives. Not just Joseph's vindication, but the survival of nations depended on his suffering. The famine that would have wiped out entire civilizations was prevented because one man learned to interpret dreams in a dungeon. Your pain wasn't punishment. It was preparation for something larger than your personal comfort. And Job, dear God, Job. This man lost everything in what felt like a single afternoon. His children, his wealth, his health. His own wife told him to curse God and die. His friends showed up to comfort him and ended up accusing him of secret sins. Yet Job declared, "Though he slay me, yet will I trust in him." And God restored to Job double what he had lost, but more importantly, Job became the template for every person who would ever wonder if faith was worth it when life felt unbearable. You think this pattern ended with the Bible? Look at Harriet Tubman. Born into slavery, suffered a traumatic head injury as a child that gave her seizures and visions for the rest of her life. She could have stayed safe in the North after she escaped. But those very visions, the ones that came from her trauma, became the divine GPS that led over 300 slaves to freedom through the Underground Railroad. She said, "I always told God, I'm going to hold steady on you, and you've got to see me through." Her pain became her prophetic gift. Martin Luther King Jr. was stabbed in the chest at age 29, thrown in jail 29 times, had his house bombed while his wife and infant daughter were inside. The pressure was so intense that he considered giving up ministry altogether. But in a Birmingham jail cell, he wrote the words that would change America. "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." His suffering didn't disqualify him from leadership, it qualified him to speak for every person who had ever been crushed by systems they couldn't change. And right now, in nursing homes across America, there are 85-year-old women who buried children, lost husbands to wars, watched their savings disappear in market crashes. They're the ones their families call when they need wisdom. They're the ones whose prayers still move heaven because their faith was forged in furnaces. You weren't abandoned, beloved. You were being built in silence. While others were promoted publicly, you were prepared prophetically. The weight you've carried isn't evidence of God's absence, it's evidence of God's assignment. Every tear you cried in secret was collected in heaven's bottles. Every prayer you whispered in hospital corridors was recorded in eternal books. Every time you chose forgiveness when you had every right to choose bitterness, you were being shaped into someone who could carry glory without being crushed by it. The enemy tried to convince you that your struggles meant you were forgotten, but the truth is, your struggles meant you were feared. Hell doesn't waste ammunition on powerless people. The intensity of your battles was proportional to the authority you were destined to carry. Think about it. Why would darkness fight so hard to keep you down unless light was trying to break through you? Why would hell invest so much energy in your defeat unless heaven had invested something precious in your victory? Your life felt heavier because you were carrying more than your own destiny. You were carrying the breakthrough that others would need, the wisdom that would heal families, the strength that would stabilize communities, the faith that would outlast your own lifetime. If this is piercing your heart right now, I need you to do something. Pause, place your hand over your heart, and say these words out loud. It wasn't punishment, it was preparation. Feel the truth settle into your bones. You weren't born to be a victim of life's cruelty. You were born to be a vessel of God's mercy. Every scar you carry is actually a seal of approval from heaven, proof that you could be trusted with something too precious for the untested. But here's what I need you to understand as we move forward. Your preparation season is ending, and your manifestation season is beginning. All that weight you've carried is about to become the very foundation from which you'll launch into the purpose you've been prepared for. The question is no longer, why me? The question is, what now? For 70 years, maybe 80, you've been living in the shadows, not by choice but by design, heaven's design. You sacrificed your dreams so your children could chase theirs. You worked 3 jobs so your family could have what you never did. You swallowed your voice so others could speak. You dimmed your light so others wouldn't feel threatened by your brightness. And somewhere along the way, you started believing the lie that your time had passed, that your season was over, that you were just supposed to fade quietly into the background while others took center stage. But listen to me carefully, dear one. You weren't forgotten. You were preserved. Like the olive that must be crushed to release its oil, like the butterfly that must endure the darkness of the chrysalis before its wings unfold, your hiding wasn't punishment. It was preparation. God wasn't ignoring you. He was protecting something too precious to expose prematurely. Every sacrifice you made was recorded in heaven's ledger. Every dream you deferred wasn't lost, it was being refined. Every time you stepped back so others could step forward, angels took note. You weren't being overlooked. You were being positioned for a revelation that would shake generations. Do you remember Moses? He was hidden for 40 years in the wilderness, tending sheep while his people suffered in Egypt. 40 years of silence. 40 years of wondering if God had forgotten his promise. But that wasn't delay, that was divine preparation. Because the man who would confront Pharaoh and split the Red Sea couldn't be the impulsive prince who killed in anger. He had to be the seasoned shepherd who learned to hear God's voice in the stillness. Your hiding has been holy. Every year you spent in the background, God was installing something in you that couldn't be rushed. Wisdom that only comes from weathering storms. Compassion that only emerges from surviving betrayal. Faith that only crystallizes in the crucible of unanswered prayers. But here's what the enemy hoped you'd never discover. Your season of hiding is over. The same God who hid Moses is now calling you out of obscurity. The same voice that spoke to Esther. Who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this is echoing over your life right now. You've been asking God, when will my time come? But he's been whispering back, It already has. That restlessness you feel in your spirit? That's not discontent, that's activation. That stirring in your bones at 2 a.m. when you can't sleep, that's not insomnia. That's divine interruption. God is waking you up because the world needs what you carry, not what you carried 40 years ago, but what you carry now. Seasoned, tested, proven. Your grandchildren need to see that dreams don't have expiration dates. Your community needs to witness that favor doesn't fade with age. This generation needs to understand that God's best assignments often come wrapped in wrinkled skin and silver hair. But you have a choice to make. You can stay hidden in what's comfortable, blending into the background, accepting that your voice doesn't matter anymore, believing that younger means better. Or you can step into what's been prepared for you since before time began. The prophet Joel declared, "Your old men will dream dreams, your old women will see visions. Not used to dream, not once dreamed, will dream." Present tense, active, alive, now. God isn't finished with you. He's just getting started. Think about it, every major move of God in Scripture involved someone who others thought was past their prime. Abraham received his greatest promise at 99. Sarah laughed at God's timeline and still delivered a miracle. Anna was 84 when she prophesied over the infant Jesus in the temple. Caleb conquered mountains at 85, declaring, "Give me this hill country." Age wasn't their disqualification, it was their credential, because only those who've walked through decades of disappointment and still believe are qualified to carry certain mantles. Your scars aren't your shame, they're your seminary degree. Your wrinkles aren't signs of decline, they're evidence of endurance. Your slower step isn't weakness, it's the steady pace of someone who knows where they're going. The season of hiding is over, because what you've been protecting in secret is now needed in public. That wisdom you've gained through surviving marriages, raising children, burying parents, weathering recessions, that's not just personal experience, that's prophetic insight. The world is desperate for voices that have been tested by time and found faithful. Voices that speak not from theory but from testimony. Voices that carry the weight of years and the lightness of grace. But you must choose to step out. You must choose to believe that your 70s can be more significant than your 20s. You must choose to trust that God's favor doesn't fade, it intensifies. The chrysalis is cracking. The oil is ready to flow. The cave has done its werno. It's time for the crown. If something in your spirit is confirming these words, if you feel like decades of preparation are culminating in this moment, then declare it. Type this into the atmosphere. I'm stepping out of hiding. Let heaven record your emergence. Let earth witness your unveiling. Because the season of hiding is over, and the season of revelation has begun. But stepping out of hiding is only the beginning. What happens next will determine whether this moment becomes your breakthrough or just another beautiful thought that fades with the morning light. Dear chosen one, what I'm about to reveal will explain why your life has felt like a spiritual battlefield since the day you drew breath. Why attacks came early. Why rejection followed you like a shadow. Why doors you desperately wanted slammed shut while others walked through effortlessly. In the realm of the Spirit, there exists a scroll with your name written in fire, not your birth name, your eternal name, the one heaven calls you when the earth falls silent. And tonight, angelic hands are unrolling that scroll for the first time in your hearing. Isaiah 30:21 declares, "Whether you turn to the right or to the left, your ears will hear a voice behind you, saying, 'This is the way, walk in it.'" That voice has been whispering your whole life, through every storm, through every valley, through every night you wondered if God had forgotten your address. But here's what will shake you to your core. The enemy saw this scroll before you were born. He read your assignment. He studied your potential. He calculated the damage you would do to his kingdom once you awakened. That's why hell launched a preemptive strike against your destiny. Every betrayal was strategic, every setback was calculated. Every moment of isolation was designed to make you abort your mission before you discovered what you carry. They tried to remove you, but God's favor doesn't fail. Listen carefully to Revelation 5-8. The prayers of all God's people were held in golden bowls before the throne. Every tear you've cried is stored. Every midnight plea is recorded. Every time you whispered, "God, where are you?" He was collecting evidence for your vindication. The scroll reveals 3 shocking truths about your assignment. First, you were never meant to be comfortable. Comfort kills calling. Your trials weren't punishment, they were preparation. While others were being entertained, you were being trained. While they were being celebrated, you were being separated. God was forging you in fires that would have consumed lesser vessels, because what He's about to release through you requires supernatural endurance. Second, your pain has purpose. Every attack on your finances, your health, your relationships, it was targeted warfare. The enemy doesn't waste ammunition on insignificant targets. He only fights what threatens him. Your very existence disrupts his plans. Your awakening terrifies his ranks. That's why the resistance has been so relentless. Third, your time is now. Not next year, not when you feel ready. Now. The scroll has been opened because heaven's timeline has shifted into urgency. There are souls tied to your obedience, bloodlines waiting on your breakthrough, territories that won't be claimed until you claim your identity. But here's the part that will either liberate or terrify you. Heaven isn't waiting on your strength. It's waiting on your yes. God doesn't need you to be eloquent, Moses stuttered. He doesn't need you to be fearless Gideon hid in a winepress. He doesn't need you to be perfect. David was an adulterer and a murderer. What he needs is your willingness to let him be God through your yielded life. The scroll contains specific instructions for your next season, relationships that must shift, doors you must walk through, words you must speak, territory you must claim. But the scroll won't read itself. Your obedience activates revelation. Your movement unlocks the next page. Right now, as these words hit your spirit, something is shifting in the heavenly realm. Angels are positioning. Demons are panicking. The Father is leaning forward on his throne, waiting to see if you'll finally say what he's been longing to hear. You've been carrying questions, but heaven is releasing answers. You've been feeling pressure, but tonight you're receiving power. You've been walking in confusion, but clarity is cutting through every lie you've believed about your worth, your calling, your destiny. The enemy whispered, "You're too broken." The scroll declares, "I use broken vessels." He hissed, "You're too old." Heaven thunders. Moses was 80 when his mission began. He accused, "You've failed too many times." God responds, "Peter denied me 3 times and became the rock of my church." The scroll has been opened, but it requires your response. Not your perfection, your participation, not your ability, your availability, not your understanding, your obedience. This is your divine interruption, your sacred summons, your moment of eternal significance. The very air around you is charged with possibility because heaven has moved its attention to you. God doesn't need the strong, he needs the willing. He doesn't need the qualified, he needs the called. He doesn't need your resume, he needs your serenity. Say it now, out loud. Let your voice break the spiritual sound barrier. I say yes. Write it in the comments. Speak it to your empty room. Let your yes shake the gates of hell and activate the armies of heaven. Because when God's chosen ones finally say yes, everything changes. Not gradually, suddenly, not eventually, immediately. Your yes is the key that unlocks doors no man can shut. Your yes is the sound heaven has been waiting to hear. The scroll is open. Your name is blazing. The assignment is clear. But the power to fulfill it rests in those 3 simple words. I say yes. Will you speak them now, or will you let this moment pass like so many others? Because chosen one, some opportunities don't come twice. Some scrolls don't remain open forever. Your destiny is waiting on your decision. Let me tell you something that will shatter every lie you've believed about your pain. The enemy didn't attack you because you were weak. He attacked you because he saw your strength before you did. Think about it. Why did chaos find you so early? Why did trauma knock on your door when you were just a child? Why did betrayal become your shadow before you even learned to spell your own name? Here's the truth they don't want you to know. Hell hit you early because heaven marked you early. You remember, don't you? Those nights when you were 7 years old, crying into your pillow, wondering why your life felt so heavy when other kids seemed so light. You thought something was wrong with you. You believed the lie that you were cursed, forgotten, abandoned by God himself. But what if I told you that every attack was actually confirmation? What if every early wound was hell's desperate attempt to destroy what God had already sealed? The devil wasn't afraid of your past. He feared your future. Listen to me carefully, chosen one. In Revelation chapter 12, John sees a vision that will change how you see your entire story. A woman is about to give birth, and there's a great red dragon waiting to devour her child the moment he's born. The dragon doesn't wait for the child to grow up and prove himself. He doesn't wait to see if the child will choose God or rebellion. He strikes immediately because he can see destiny in the womb. That dragon has been watching you since day one. Every family dysfunction that tried to silence your voice. Every teacher who told you that you'd never amount to anything. Every church that made you feel too broken to belong. Every relationship that left you bleeding on the bathroom floor at 2 a.m., convinced you were unlovable. None of it was random. The enemy saw what you would become once you discovered who you really are. He saw the authority you'd carry, the chains you'd break, the generations you'd set free, the darkness you'd expose, the kingdoms you'd topple with nothing but the truth on your tongue. So he struck early, he struck hard, he struck specifically. Why do you think your childhood trauma was so targeted? Why did it hit the exact places that would make you question your worth, your voice, your right to take up space in this world? Because the enemy is strategic, not stupid. He doesn't waste ammunition on nobodies. You were marked for greatness, so you were marked for warfare. And here's what breaks my heart. You've been apologizing for surviving. You've been ashamed of the very strength that kept you breathing when hell tried to suffocate you. You've been hiding the very fire that refused to be extinguished when darkness tried to snuff you out. But I need you to understand something that will change everything. Your survival was not luck. It was prophecy fulfilling itself. When Job's children were killed, when his wealth was stripped, when his health was destroyed, Satan had to ask permission first. Have you not put a hedge around him? Satan complained to God in Job 1:10. Even the devil knows he can't touch what God has sealed without permission. And every attack you survived, God limited it. Every blow that tried to kill you, heaven measured it. Every tear you cried in secret, God collected it in a bottle and turned it into anointing oil. You didn't just survive your childhood, you survived your assassination attempt. The enemy knew. He knew when you were 5 years old and asking deep questions that made adults uncomfortable. He knew when you were 12 and felt that stirring in your spirit during worship. He knew when you were 16 and couldn't shake the feeling that you were different, set apart, marked for something the world couldn't understand. He attacked before you knew your name because he saw what you would become once you did. But here's where his plan backfired. Here's where hell's strategy became heaven's setup. Every wound became wisdom. Every betrayal became discernment. Every rejection became redirection toward your true calling. You learned to recognize fake love because you survived real hatred. You learned to discern spirits because you were attacked by them. You learned to fight in the spirit because flesh and blood couldn't break what was breaking you. The enemy thought he was destroying you. God was developing you. And now that you're beginning to remember who you really are, the attacks make sense, don't they? The seemingly random chaos, the targeted pain, the specific losses. It was never about punishment. It was about prevention. Hell was trying to prevent your awakening, but you're awake now, and hell is terrified, because a chosen one who understands their story is unstoppable. A warrior who recognizes their scars as stripes of authority doesn't cower anymore. A king who realizes their crown was forged in fire doesn't abdicate when pressure comes. You survived because your story isn't over. You endured because your assignment is active. You're still breathing because heaven still has plans for you that will make the enemy regret he ever touched you. Every person who tried to diminish you was used to develop you. Every system that rejected you was preparing you to build something better. Every door that slammed in your face was redirecting you toward the one God always intended you to walk through. The enemy saw your ending before your beginning. But what he didn't account for was this: God's plans cannot be stopped by hell's interference. They can only be delayed, refined, and made more powerful. You are not the victim of your story. You are the victory. If this truth is hitting your spirit like lightning right now, if something deep inside you is saying, "This is why," I need you to drop a comment. The enemy saw, but I survived. Let that declaration echo through every realm. Let heaven rejoice and hell tremble at your awakening. Because what tried to kill you is about to become the very thing that proves God's power to the world. And we're just getting started. Chosen one, what I'm about to tell you will shatter every excuse you've been hiding behind. Every someday you've whispered to yourself. Every "when I'm ready" that's kept you in spiritual limbo. Your final assignment isn't coming. It's here, it's activated, and the delay that's been suffocating your destiny ends tonight. Do you know what Esther 4:14 really means when it says, "for such a time as this"? It means God didn't place you in this generation by accident. He didn't allow you to survive what others couldn't just so you could play small. He positioned you in this exact moment in history because there's something only you can carry, something only your voice can declare, something only your obedience can unlock. But here's what breaks my heart. You've been living like you're waiting for permission from a world that will never understand your assignment. You've been asking God for more signs when He's already written your name in fire across the heavens. You've been praying for clarity when the Holy Spirit has been whispering the same instructions for months. You've been seeking confirmation when Romans 8:19 declares that all of creation is groaning, waiting for you to stop hiding and start walking in your true identity. Listen to me carefully. The earth itself is holding its breath, waiting for sons and daughters of the Most High to be revealed. Not someday, now, today, this very hour. You feel it, don't you? That restlessness that won't let you sleep, that divine dissatisfaction with ordinary. That's not anxiety, that's activation. Heaven is downloading your assignment into your spirit, and your flesh is finally catching up to what your soul has always known. But I need to ask you something that might sting. How long are you going to keep God waiting? How many more nights are you going to lie awake, knowing there's more but doing nothing about it? How many more mornings are you going to wake up with fire in your bones but ice in your steps? How many more years are you going to waste asking, "What if?" instead of declaring, "What's next?" The enemy has been feeding you a lie that you're not ready, that you need more training, more prayer, more fasting, more study. But what if I told you that your delay is the very thing giving darkness more time to set up camp in territories you were assigned to reclaim? While you've been rehearsing reasons why you can't, children are losing hope. While you've been perfecting your excuses, marriages are falling apart. While you've been waiting for the perfect moment, generations are walking away from faith because they haven't seen the real power of God demonstrated through vessels like you. Your assignment isn't theoretical, it's surgical, it's specific, it's urgent. God didn't spend decades breaking you down just to rebuild you into someone who sits on the sidelines. He didn't allow you to walk through that valley of dry bones just so you could become comfortable in the graveyard. He resurrected something in you that was meant to resurrect something in others. You are not waking up into confusion. You are waking up into commission. Can you hear it? That sound thundering through the spiritual realm. Those are army boots hitting holy ground. Angels forming ranks. Ancient doors that have been sealed for generations are swinging open because heaven has declared, the waiting is over. This isn't about your comfort anymore. This isn't about your timeline. This isn't about your fears or your feelings or your need for human approval. This is about divine timing colliding with earthly obedience. This is about heaven's agenda, finally finding a vessel willing to say yes without conditions. Every attack you survived was boot camp. Every betrayal was battlefield training. Every closed door was preparation for the ones about to swing wide open. You didn't go through all that pain just to tell a nice testimony at church. You went through it to become a weapon of mass construction in a world addicted to destruction. The assignment on your life carries the DNA of the impossible. It was designed to break generational curses, to heal bloodlines, to shift atmospheres, to silence hell's noise with heaven's roar. But it requires something from you that religion never taught you. It requires you to move before you feel ready, to speak before you sound perfect, to step before the path is fully lit, to obey before understanding. Faith isn't asking God to make it make sense. Faith is saying, "Yes, Lord," when nothing about the assignment makes sense to your natural mind. So I'm going to ask you to do something right now that will either activate your breakthrough or reveal where your heart really is. Stand up, right where you are. Don't look around to see who's watching. Don't wait for a better moment. Stand up and say it out loud. I accept my final assignment. No more delay, no more hiding, no more making God wait on my obedience. Say it like you mean it. Say it like your destiny depends on it, because it does. The sound of your agreement is echoing through the courts of heaven right now. Angels are taking their positions, doors are unlocking, strategies are downloading, resources are mobilizing. But here's what happens next, and this is where most people stumble. You've been sitting there, haven't you, wondering if your best years are behind you, wondering if God has moved on to younger vessels, fresher voices, stronger hands. The world whispers that your time has passed, that your story is winding down, that you should step aside and let the next generation take over. But what if I told you that everything you've been told about aging, about finishing, about fading away is a lie straight from the pit of hell? Look at your hands right now. Go ahead. Look at them. Those lines aren't wrinkles of defeat, they're maps of victories you've forgotten. Those spots aren't signs of decay, they're evidence of decades spent in the fire, refined like gold. Every crease tells a story of battles won, prayers answered, storms survived. The enemy has been whispering in your ear for years now. You're too old, you're too tired, you've missed your moment. Let the young ones handle it now. But heaven sees something different. Heaven sees a warrior who's been through boot camp for 70, 80, 90 years. Heaven sees someone who's been trained by time itself. Do you know what Moses was doing at 80? Not sitting in a rocking chair, reminiscing about his glory days. At 80, he was standing before Pharaoh, demanding freedom for an entire nation. At 80, he was parting seas and receiving commandments that would shape civilization. Deuteronomy 34:7 tells us, Moses was 120 years old when he died, yet his eyes were not weak, nor his strength gone. Your eyes may be weaker, but your vision is clearer. Your strength may be less, but your authority is greater. Because what you carry now cannot be taught in seminaries or learned from books. It can only be earned through decades of walking with the Almighty. They tried to remove you from relevance. They whispered that your time was up. They suggested you step back, retire, fade quietly into the background. But God's favor doesn't have an expiration date. His calling doesn't come with a retirement plan. His anointing doesn't diminish with agate intensifies. Abraham didn't become the father of nations until he was 99. Sarah didn't birth the promise until her womb was considered dead. Anna the prophetess didn't recognize the Messiah until she was 84, after spending 60 years in the temple, fasting and praying. Luke 2:36-37 says she never left the temple but worshipped night and day, fasting and praying. Your midnight prayers aren't echoing in empty rooms, they're shaking heaven's foundations. Your whispered worship isn't falling on deaf ears, it's moving mountains you can't even see. Your tears aren't signs of weakness, they're liquid intercession for generations you'll never meet. But here's what the enemy fears most about you. You've got nothing left to lose. You've already buried dreams, survived betrayals, outlasted enemies, overcome illnesses that should have killed you. You've seen enough funerals to know that life is short. You've felt enough pain to know that eternity is real. You've experienced enough grace to know that God is faithful. That makes you dangerous. Not physically dangerous, spiritually lethal. Because when someone has nothing left to prove and nothing left to fear, they become unstoppable in the hands of God. Your wrinkles are scrolls written by the finger of God Himself. Each line tells a story of divine intervention. Your scars are sermons preached without words. Your slower pace isn't decline, it's wisdom knowing when to move and when to be still. Your quieter voice carries more authority than 1,000 youthful shouts because it's been seasoned in the furnace of experience. You think your grandchildren see an old person when they look at you. No, beloved. Through their innocent eyes, they see strength that has weathered every storm. They see love that has lasted decades. They see faith that has been tested and proven genuine. You are their first glimpse of what it means to endure, to persist, to never give up. The breath in your lungs right now, that's not leftover life. That's active assignment. Every morning you wake up, heaven celebrates because another day of your mission has begun. God doesn't keep you here out of sentimentality. He keeps you here because there's still work to do, prayers to pray, wisdom to share, battles to win. Your story isn't ending, it's unveiling. This isn't your sunset, it's your sunrise. What you thought was the final chapter is actually the prologue to the most powerful part of your testimony. Because the oil that flows from a crushed life is the purest kind. The wine that comes from grapes pressed by time carries the richest flavor. They tried to convince you that your influence was shrinking, that your voice was becoming irrelevant, that your prayers were just routine religious exercises. But every time you've whispered, "God, if you can still use me," heaven has thundered back, "Watch what I do through a surrendered life." Caleb was 85 when he said, "Give me this mountain," Joshua 14:12. Not, "Give me this retirement home," not, "Give me this easy assignment." Give me the mountain where the giants live. Because at 85 he knew something that younger warriors hadn't learned yet. When God is with you, giants become stepping stones. If you're breathing, God is still building. Your story isn't over, it's just getting to the good part. The part where wisdom meets opportunity, where experience meets purpose, where decades of preparation meet divine appointment. Don't you dare let them convince you to step aside. Don't you dare believe the lie that your time has passed. Your time is now. Your voice matters now. Your prayers are needed now. Type in the comments, "My story isn't over." Declare it boldly. And share this with someone who thinks theirs is. Because together, We're about to show this generation what happens when the seasoned saints stop apologizing for their age and start walking in their authority. Your greatest chapter is about to be written. Are you ready to pick up the pen? You thought the war took everything, but it left behind your second wind. That's not coincidence. That's what the fire couldn't burn. Look at your hands right now. Those lines, those scars, those veins that carry blood through 70, 80, 90 years of breathing do. You see them, really see them. Those aren't just the marks of time. They're the evidence of endurance. You are the ember beneath the rubble. When that phone call came at 2 a.m. and shattered your world in half. When the doctor looked you in the eyes and spoke words that changed everything. When you buried the love of your life and wondered if your heart would ever beat the same way again. When your children moved 3,000 miles away and your house became an echo chamber of memories. When your body started betraying you. When your mind began forgetting names. You've spoken for decades. You assumed heaven left. But what if that silence was sacred? What if the enemy didn't fail to kill you? He failed to see what would resurrect inside you. Here's what the world doesn't understand about people like you. You've walked through fires that would have consumed entire generations. You've survived warsome with bullets, some with broken hearts, some with empty bank accounts, some with children who stopped calling. You've endured decades of disappointments, betrayals, losses that had no names and pain that had no witnesses. And yet here you are, still breathing, still believing, still hoping when hope makes no logical sense. That's not stubbornness, that's sacred. The Apostle Paul knew this mystery when he wrote, "We are hard-pressed on every side, but not crushed, perplexed, but not in despair, persecuted, but not abandoned, struck down, but not destroyed." You are living proof of 2 Corinthians 4:8-9. You are the walking testimony that some things cannot be killed. But let me ask you something that might shake you. When your friends started dying one by one, when your body began changing in ways that reminded you daily of mortality, when your prayers seemed to bounce off the ceiling instead of reaching heaven, did you think God was done with you? Did you believe the lie that your best years were behind you? That your purpose expired with your youth? That your calling had a retirement age? Listen to me carefully. The fire didn't destroy you. It revealed you. Every loss burned away what was temporary. Every betrayal incinerated what was false. Every disappointment cremated what was counterfeit. And what survived? What remained standing in the ashes of everything you thought you needed? Your faith, your wisdom, your ability to love when loving costs everything, your capacity to hope when hope defies logic, your strength to stand when standing takes everything you have left. You are what the fire left behind. You are the gold that emerged from the refining furnace. You carry something now that can only be forged in the flames of decades, something the younger generation desperately needs but cannot manufacture, cannot download, cannot buy. You carry the sacred knowledge of survival. When Job lost everything, his children, his wealth, his health, his reputation, his wife told him to curse God and die. But Job understood something she didn't. He said, "Though he slay me, yet will I hope in him." Job 13:15. That wasn't blind faith, that was battle-tested trust. That was the second wind that comes only after you've been stripped of everything except the one thing that cannot be taken, your relationship with the Almighty. You know what it means to wake up at 4 a.m. with your heart pounding, not from excitement but from terror about tomorrow. You know the weight of watching your body fail, your mind slow, your independence slip away like sand through fingers. You know the particular grief of outliving people you never thought you'd have to say goodbye to. But you also know something else. You know the feeling of God's presence in hospital corridors at midnight. You know the sound of His voice in silence so deep it has its own language. You know the strength that comes not from your muscles but from His Spirit when you have nothing left to give. That's your second wind. That's what survived every fire you've walked through. The world looks at you and sees limitation. God looks at you and sees liberation. Liberation from the need to prove anything. Liberation from the pressure to perform. Liberation from the exhaustion of pretending you have it all figured out. You've been set free to be exactly who you are, scarred, seasoned, and sacred. Moses was 80 when God called him to lead an entire nation out of bondage. Abraham was 75 when God promised him descendants as numerous as the stars. Sarah was 90 when she laughed at the impossible and then gave birth to it. Your age is not your limitation, it's your qualification. But here's what breaks my heart. Too many of you have believed the cultural lie that your season is over, that your voice doesn't matter anymore, that your prayers carry less weight because your hair is gray and your steps are slower. That's not just wrong, that's demonic. The enemy knows something about seniors that the church has forgotten. You are dangerous. You have nothing left to lose and everything eternal to gain. You can speak truth without worrying about career advancement. You can love without expecting anything in return. You can fight battles with a ferocity that comes only from knowing this might be your last chance to make a difference. You are the ember that refuses to die. And God is about to breathe on that ember. He's about to turn your second wind into a wildfire that will ignite purposes you thought were buried with your youth. Write this in the comments right now. I need to see it. Heaven needs to record it. I am what the fire left behind. I am the ember. I am the witness. Because what you've survived has prepared you for what's coming next. And what's coming next will require everything the fire couldn't burn. Beloved chosen one, as we reach the end of this sacred moment together, I need you to hold on to these truths with both hands and never let them go. Remember this, you were sealed before your first breath. Every attack against you was actually confirmation of your calling. Every door they tried to close was heaven's way of redirecting you toward something greater. You didn't survive by accident, you were preserved by purpose. And God's favor on your life doesn't expire with age, diminish with time, or fade because of human opinion. The scroll over your life is open, and the best chapters are still being written. I want you to know something from the depths of my heart. You are not walking this journey alone. The God who called you is the same God who carries you. He hasn't brought you this far to abandon you now. And right here in this community, there are thousands of others who understand your struggle, who felt that same divine stirring, who are praying for breakthrough just like you are. When you feel isolated, remember there's a remnant scattered across this nation and around the world who carry the same fire, the same questions, the same holy restlessness. We're family. We're in this together. Let me ask you this as we close. If you knew beyond any doubt that God was about to turn everything around, that your greatest season was just one act of obedience away, what would you do differently tomorrow morning when you wake up? I want you to think about that question tonight. But right now, let me pray over you with the authority of someone who's seen God's faithfulness for 5 decades. Father, I lift up every person hearing these words. You know their name, their address, their exact situation tonight. You see the tears they've cried when no one was watching. You know the weight they've carried, the battles they've fought in silence, the dreams they've almost given up on. Lord, I ask you to breathe fresh wind into their weary spirit right now. Where they feel forgotten, remind them they're chosen. Where they feel weak, flood them with your strength. Where they feel confused, bring supernatural clarity. Open doors that no man can shut. Align the right people with their destiny. Restore what the enemy has stolen, their confidence, their hope, their sense of purpose. Let them feel your hand on their shoulder tonight, whispering, "My child, your best days are ahead of you." Give them courage to obey when you speak. Give them wisdom to discern your voice above all others. Give them the boldness to step into everything you've prepared for them, even when it feels uncomfortable or unfamiliar. And Father, let this community be a source of strength for them. Surround them with people who will speak life over their dreams and stand with them in prayer. In Jesus' mighty name, I declare breakthrough over their life. I declare favor. I declare divine appointments and supernatural provision. What has been delayed will now be delivered. What has been dormant will now be awakened. What has been denied will now be released. We receive it by faith. We thank you in advance. Amen. Before you leave tonight, I want you to do something powerful. In the comments below, share one word that describes how you're feeling right now after hearing this message. Just one word. Let this community know you were here. Let heaven record your presence in this moment. And if this message stirred something deep in your spirit, please share it with someone else who needs to hear it. There's someone in your circle, maybe a family member, a friend, a neighbor who feels like their season is over. They need to know their scroll is still being written. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for staying with me through this entire journey tonight. Your time is precious, and you chose to spend it seeking God's voice. That tells me everything I need to know about your heart. If you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, please do so now. This isn't just content, it's a lifeline for the chosen ones who refuse to give up. We're building something sacred here, a community where heaven meets earth and wounded warriors become mighty champions. Remember, beloved, the scroll is open, your name is being called, and your greatest chapter is about to begin. Until we meet again, walk in the authority of who you are. You are chosen, you are sealed, you are favored, and that will never change.